Hi, I'm LJ Tucker. Welcome back to 7,000 Volts, Living an Electrified Life. Today, we'll be talking about influences. And I have a special guest that has influenced and helped me to where I'm at today. Her name is Tahisia Scantling. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, LJ. I'm honored to be here. Honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
I want to start off by saying thank you, and thank you again. The impact and influence that you've had on me since day one when I met you at the trade show over in Seminole, I believe.
Yep, that's exactly where it was.
Yes. You, with your banking background and now real estate background, you was able to help. You were able to help me overcome hurdles. Like because of you, I was able to get my first line of credit through the BBIC.
Yeah.
You looked at my numbers. You asked me some goals that I had. And I told you, I said, well, eventually I want to buy my own property, commercial property. And you said, well, let me look at your paperwork. And you looked over my numbers through QuickBooks and stuff. And you're like, well, what's stopping you from buying the building?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, I think it's, well, first I wanted to say when I met with you, I thought it was very aspiring to see someone, an African-American person who had the ambition and the drive that you did. And so I knew when I first laid eyes on you that you were going to be very successful. And when we had that conversation, just like many other business owners that I've spoken with, a lot of times we just don't know how to do it. We don't know that path, that road to go down to be able to continually remove those barriers to get to that end result that we want to be able to come to. So congratulations again on all of your success.
And I appreciate the impact that you had on that. Me and my wife, we often talk. It's like, man, that Tahisia, man, she's the real deal, you know. Because I remember after I came on talk, I said, man, according to Tahisia, our numbers where it needs to be at. We need to do this here. My wife's like, slow down. What are you talking about? I said, listen, I've been saying it that we need to get our own office building.
Yes.
You know, every time we look at these places and look at the dollar amount of how much the rent is, I was like, if we're gonna be paying this much money, we need to own our own building.
Absolutely.
And you helped you helped tip the scale to like just go all in to purchasing a commercial property, and I think we did well.
Yes,
on
very well.
property.
Very well. When I drove up, I was like, okay, LJ, I see all of the space. And that's, to me, that's the biggest thing that you can have to build and create generational wealth is owning something.
Yes.
You know, I've talked to people who have been leasing spaces for 20 and 30 years and they don't own anything. So just the mindset of you being open to receive that information, you know, speaks volume of how you're building a legacy for not only you, but your family. You know, you have a larger family. And so that's the way that you continually teach them about not only entrepreneurship, because they see their mom and their dad as being business owners. You're not just an entrepreneur, you're a business owner. And you run your business like a business. Unlike a lot of people, you know, they're stuck in that solopreneur type environment. So, I mean, there's just so many things. I love your story. I absolutely love your story. And I know people know about it and they've heard about it. But for the ones that haven't, to be able to just transition from a situation take that situation into something so positive, and then being able to go back and not only create an environment, a natural environment for yourself, but to bring others up. You know, I'm a big advocate of pulling people up by the bootstraps. And what you do every day when you go out there and you teach these arborists, is that what they call? Is that what they're called? So you teach these arborists not only how to take care of themselves, but how to be safe, how to collect a nice check. You pay them well. Your environment is nice. You don't run a, you know, crappy under the bridge, or if you would call it, business. You've done everything by the book. And a lot of entrepreneurs should take note and be able to look at your story. And that's what we try and do. We try and help people, you know, create those stories like yours.
Yes. So I'll transition a little bit. You do the real estate, and you buy, you sell houses, you flip.
We do.
You know, we had a guest, Maran. He does it. He has his A&E show where he does it, and he shared his story with us. And I want you to share a little bit of your story with us, because sometimes people see how successful you are.
Oh, yeah.
They'll see the car, they'll look at your family, oh man. So you didn't snap your fingers and it happened like this. Just give us a little background of.
So my story actually is pretty interesting, because if I go back to where I started from and where I am now, most people, if they see me today, they would never think that I came from where I was. So I was a high school dropout, had a baby at, I was 17 years old, had a baby at 17. And I was on every type of public assistance that there was, right? Food stamps, housing. If it was free, it was for me. I'm just keeping it real.
And that's what we want. That's keep going.
Yeah. And, I looked at my environment and I just was like, I don't want to raise my children in this type of environment. I want to do something different. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I had no role models, that was, inspiring. My role models were saying, okay, you got a baby, go get some WIC, right? You got a baby, go get food stamps. Yes. Now you can go get on housing. But I didn't want that. I wanted something totally different for my life. And I don't know where that inspiration came from, but that was what was driven inside of me. And so I think I purchased my home at 26 years old, 25, 26, maybe 27. We've been in the same house since, and we're actually doing a total renovation. I bought the house at $70,000. It's worth over $700,000. I bought that house at $70,000.
Wow.
When we're done with the renovation, it will be worth over $700,000.
Man, 10 times over.
10 times. But when I bought that house at $70,000, it was the biggest expense. Actually, when we went and saw that house, the very first time that I saw it, I was like, absolutely, I don't want this house. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It was right across the street from the water, but I didn't know about the water. I didn't know the value of what the water meant. So my realtor at that time took me to that house. It had like brown vanities, a yellow toilet, and pink walls. And it was a rental property. It was it was disgusting. And I said no. 3 months later, we came back to that same house because that was all that I could afford. That was all that I could afford. And that guy, he told me, he said, well, look into this as something that you can, build on. But I was a young female. I'm like, I want something cute. I want something. It was nasty. It was disgusting. So finally, at the time, my husband, he was my boyfriend, we talked about it, and he kept saying, look at the potential. Then I went and saw this other house that was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and I only had 2 kids at the time. But I was like, oh, it's so cute. And my aunt came to me and she said, well, what if you have more kids? At that time, I didn't plan on having any more kids. I wanted to, just take that property and live in it because it was cute. We went back to that other house and we ended up buying that house. And the very first day that we got into the house, the sewer line broke. We had no money. So my husband, at the time he was my boyfriend, we rented a backhoe. We dug out our whole front yard. The neighbors in the community, they were already disgusted that the house was there. They were really disgusted when they saw some younger people living in the property. And then now we had the whole front yard torn up. They were really disgusted. They were like, look, you guys need to get out of our neighborhood, right? So over the years, doing small renovations to that property, I remember our very first Super Bowl. This is a true story. I was just telling a friend of mine this the other day. We had our very first Super Bowl at my party, and we had crates, and we had the TV on the crates.
The milk crates?
The milk crates.
Oh, I remember the milk crates.
We have TVs in our wall that come down outside of the ceiling now.
Yeah.
So where we started from and where we ended is totally different. But that house, that $70,000 house, was the catalyst to be able to help me springboard. When I purchased that house, I was able to get off of public assistance. I was able to get off of WIC. I was able to get off of housing. I no longer needed public assistance. I became independent.
Very interesting. Small beginning. So it wasn't like this. You had to work with what you had and build. See, that's the problem, I think, what happens. Again, I always like to say this. I'm not bashing anybody out there. I'm not talking down to anybody, but sometimes people, they look at TV and social media and they just, they want it like this, and that's not how it works. You have to be able, because if you get it already turnkey ready, you don't even know what you have. There's no journey, there's no story with it.
Yes.
And then you're like, oh, it was already like this, so you really don't appreciate it.
You don't.
Yeah.
And there's something about learning how to, you know, in that transition, there were a lot of other things that happened, right? We don't have enough time to talk about those. But the biggest lesson that I learned from it, actually, this was, I think it's mindset. Because when you have a broke mindset, I was broke. When I talked about buying the $70,000 house, I was broke, and I had a broke person's mindset. But what I started to do was I started to attach myself with different people who had a different mindset. And then I learned over time that, you know, I'm not broke. I'm not broken. I need to be able to fix some things. But if I continue to walk down this path, so I ended up graduating. I took my GED. I ended up graduating with my associate's degree. Remember, I said I was a high school dropout. I ended up graduating with my bachelor's degree. I also have my master's degree, and I got a whole bunch of other certificates, a whole bunch of other stuff. So again, it's not where you start, it's where you end.
Yes.
And you know, I'm thankful, very thankful for that journey, because now I've been able, like you, I've been able to teach my children about entrepreneurship, and I've been able to teach because one of the biggest things that I always thought about was, how do you tell your kids to graduate if you haven't?
Yes.
So that was a lesson. When my middle son graduated, he actually plays football, you know, so to see him graduate and to see him go on and pursue his career, you know, that was
gratifying. Which son are you referring to?
So I have 3 sons.
Okay.
I have a 22-year-old. I have a 32-year-old. And then, okay. You know, after you get a certain age, you start forgetting the age of your children. I'm just trying to tell you, I don't know. They getting over 30, you old, right? And then I believe my middle son is 29. Yeah.
Man, that's a blessing, you know. My youngest is 5 and my oldest is 21, so I'm looking, it's a journey that I'm looking forward to.
To become an empty nester?
Yes. Yes. And so an interesting theme is mindset when I have guests on, or whether I have guests on or not, is mindset.
Yes.
Y'all better get this book, 7,000 Volts, Living an Electrified Life, because that's a chapter in my book, is the mindset. That's a common theme.
That's so important.
Without that right mindset, it's almost impossible. It's almost to fulfill any scripture that you read. Like one of my favorite scriptures, Mark 9:23, is all things are possible for those who believe.
Yes.
And you can't believe if you don't have the right mindset.
I got a story that changed my mindset about buying things, right? So, true story, I was in the mall with my sister and my cousin, and we had gone to Atlanta. And I remember, you know, I was actually, at this time, I was working in the banking industry, making pretty decent money, and, you know, just kind of living life to the fullest, to my fullest. And we were in this store, and I remember seeing this bag, this purse. You probably wouldn't know what a bag is, so let me describe it. It was a purse. It was a blue purse.
Okay.
And I said to myself, oh my God, I really like that purse, but I can't afford that because it's $400. So we were walking through the mall, and so my sister said, well, why don't you buy it? I said, it's $400. I don't want to spend $400 on a bag. And she said, well, you work, treat yourself to it. And I was like, I can't afford spending $400. So we were walking through the mall, and of course I see a pair of blue shoes that went perfectly with that bag. So now I look at the shoes, and I'm like, those are like $98. So that's $500. And we kept walking through the store, different stores, and I kept thinking about it. And I kept having a conversation with them, and they were like, well, why don't you just go and spend it? You make enough money, why don't you just go and spend it? But I kept saying to myself, I can't afford it. So before we left from the mall, I convinced myself that, you know what? You can afford it. Mm-hmm. And I went and I brought that bag and I brought that pair of shoes, which was about, after tax, about almost $600, right? From that point in my life, I stopped telling myself that I can't afford stuff. Because now I got red bottoms, I got Gucci, I got Louis Vuitton. But the reason that I was able to buy those things, considering what I had been telling myself, was I told myself that I can afford it. And I told myself, if I don't buy them all the time, I reward myself. Mm-hmm. So if I get a closing, I'll go and I'll buy me a pair of shoes. If I go and I make some extra money because I've done something, I'll go and I'll reward myself with a bag. Now, with that broke mindset, I would have been continually telling myself what I could not do. When you change your thought process, you change your process in general.
This is so true. I dealt with a customer like that this week. We're in a neighborhood, and normally when people come up, not that I'm trying to be mean to them, they come up and ask, can you hit this limb for me? And I'm like, normally I'll say no because I got a busy schedule.
Yeah.
But I was drawn to this older couple, and she goes, how much you'll charge me to hit that limb right there for me that's hanging low in my driveway? And I look, and I said it'd be $125.
Okay.
She's like, $125? And I looked, I said, yes, ma'am, that's because I'm here. If you change your mind when I come back, I'm going to charge you $350.
Okay.
She's like, so then she goes, well, can you do it for $100? She's like, I can't afford $125, and the hairs on the back of my neck sit up.
Okay.
I said, ma'am, don't tell me what you can't afford. I said, that's a mindset. I said, you can't afford it. I said, because my spirit is drawn to you, I'll do it for $100, not because you can't afford it.
Yes.
I said, you're old enough probably to be my mom or grandmother. She's like, I'm 85 years old, so I almost feel embarrassed. But she was in tears. She said, thank you for saying. She's like, I know not to be talking like that. I don't know why I do it. It's almost like a defense mechanism. And that reminds me, like the fleet of trucks I have. I remember going to the dump, pulling stuff off the trailer one day. This is many years ago. And I've probably told the story many times before. It's probably in my book, and I probably said it on this podcast. And I'll see these fancy trucks come in with the gravels and dump, and they're out of there in like 2 minutes flat. And it takes me 30, 40 minutes to unload because we have to unload by hand. And I remember saying, I'll never be able to afford one of those trucks. And the Spirit spoke to me right then.
And look, how many do you have, LJ?
Yeah, the Spirit said to me that day, as long as you think and talk like that, you never will.
You know, when we did the Catch class was a 15-week entrepreneur training class that we started with the Tampa Bay Black Business Investment Corporation. And in that course, one of the things I helped design and build and facilitate that class for a few years. And one of the things that we implemented in that training class was we had people to create vision boards. And in the creation of the vision board, you came up with your 30, 60, 90-day action plan. And those
Can you say that one more time?
Which one?
The vision board.
The vision board? What?
You heard that, people? That's Habakkuk 2 and 2. Write the vision down, make it plain.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm getting ready to tell you a real story, right? When it comes to, you know, like what you just said, writing it down, be careful what you ask for because you just might get it. If you start believing stuff, it might come true. Yes. So we took it a little bit further. We started creating, instead of a vision board, we started creating a decision board because you got to do some things to make those visions happen. You can't just put a piece of paper on the wall and say, okay, this is going to happen. You have to do some things to implement change, right? And by creating the 30, 60, 90-day action plan, that gives you some of the changes that you want to make when you're creating this decision board. Well, I had gone through this course a couple of times as we were teaching it, and so I started to do it for myself because it's one thing to teach, but it's also something else to apply your teaching to yourself.
Yes.
And so when I did that, in creating my decision board, I wrote some specific things that I wanted to inspire in my life. And everything on that board actually happened. And one of the things was my current husband, He was my ex-husband, which is also my baby's father. We got a whole bunch of titles. We got every title that there is. Best friend, baby daddy, husband, ex-husband. We got all those titles, right? 30 some odd years, right?
Yes.
So one of the things that we created on that board was I wanted us to be remarried, and we actually got remarried 2 years ago. But I started writing how much I wanted to make. I started writing things that I wanted to happen. And I put that I wanted to have this specific car, right? So they say be careful what you ask for because you better be ready for it. Mm-hmm. So a couple years ago, I got gifted that car. I wasn't prepared, right? Because you got insurance, you got maintenance, you got all that other stuff. But everything on that board actually happened. I didn't know how I was going to get that car. I put it on that board, not thinking, well, I believed that I was going to get it, but I didn't know how I was going to get it, right? Mm-hmm. And so it goes back to that point. If you believe in something and you start surrounding yourself with different positive affirmation, things could happen. And that happened in my life, right? So it's real. It's possible.
You ever read a book by Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich?
Of course.
So there was a part, it was I believe it was in that book. Now I got to go back because I probably read that book like 50 times.
Okay.
He said he was up speaking and he said, I don't know how, I don't know where, but I'm going to own a Rolls Royce one day.
Yeah.
He kept saying it. And by the time he got finished speaking, a guy from the crowd came up and gave him the keys to say, this is your Rolls Royce.
Wow.
Today is the day for your Rolls Royce.
Wow.
Yeah. So
wow.
I'm living proof.
Yeah, I remember we were talking about this a few years ago.
I'm living proof. We're creators. Life is not finding yourself; it's creating yourself.
Absolutely.
So if you don't create yourself, you're going to have an uncreated path. I wrote this down earlier, and it's probably in my notes. You're going to have what you think about, what you create for yourself, good, bad, or indifferent. So really, like you just said, if you don't like something, you better be careful whether you physically writing it down or you thinking about it longer time. You're gonna manifest it. Yeah. And because the power is watch your thoughts; they become your words.
Yeah, that's true.
It's one of my it's the callus of what I believe. It's like it's here. We have the ability to create and change our whole situation around.
Well, speaking of change. When I left corporate America and started in the real estate journey, I left a 6-figure income job. So for me, all right, we just talked about where I came from, right? Mm-hmm. Came from public assistance and all this stuff. And I finally got to a point where I was making 6-figure. These people had me with the VP behind my name, assistant VP. But I had a VP title behind my name. Mm-hmm. And that's what I thought I was working hard towards, right? Mm-hmm. And I left that job to go pursue entrepreneurship. And I started in real estate. And when I started in real estate, my husband, at that time, he was my husband at that time. So I think the first year I made like $12,000. He was like, what in the world is going on? You left your job? Like he was like not happy at all. Mm-hmm. It's been 14 years since I left corporate America. I have not gone back and I don't have any desire to go back. But the jump came from belief. It came from, I didn't know what was going to be expected, but I feel like, I've broken all these other barriers. This is the last barrier that I wanted to get past. And now I get the opportunity to do that. And so, it has been a struggle. Real estate is one of those industries. And let me just back up. So let me just give my title, right? So I'm a real estate broker, and the company that I own, one of the companies that I own is Right Turn Realty. And we've been in business under that corporation for about 4 years. I started back in the industry under Tahisia Scantling, PA, and was working for a couple of different, maybe 2 brokerages before I decided to say, you know what, let me just venture totally out on my own. And that was about 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay. The thing I love about what you do in your story, most of all, you always helping people. You're always helping people come up. You always giving them this unwavering knowledge that if people just apply it, I'm living proof. If you apply it, you know, I own this 2-acre, I'm not just here, we own this 2-acre facility.
Oh, it's 2 acres.
Yes. It is,
okay, yeah, it's pretty big.
And a 3,000 square foot building.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I remember before this, running a business, having my office in Countryside, which is up the street from here.
Yeah.
And I had to back the trailer in from the road to fit in the little spot that I had. And then I had 4 of the different locations I had to park equipment at, and it was always playing musical chairs to make it work.
Yeah, yeah.
And that fateful day that I sacrificed, I said, you know, I'm gonna take off the day and go to this trade. Something was drawing me to this trade show.
Yeah.
And it was a blessing because I was able to meet you. And through meeting you, I was able to grow. So we're gonna meet people all the time. Either you're meant to help them, or they're meant to help you, or you just iron sharpening iron to get better at what you do and where you're trying to go.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
And so your tenacity in helping people and it's man, there's much more blessings coming your way before because all the seeds that you're planting.
I feel that way. I do. Just in the industry, I've done a lot of, it's important for me in my legacy. I feel like it's important to be able to not just get to where you want to go, but to bring as many people as you can in the process, you know, and if it takes me losing to give, then I'm okay with that. You know, especially like I have clients that are first-time home buyers, and sometimes I've walked away with no commission. Now, I ain't rich by no means, but there's some karma that comes back. And if I give something to somebody, it comes back tenfold. You know,
Every time.
I don't know how that works, but I've given.
It's the laws of the universe.
It may be.
What goes up must come down. It's shaken down, pressed together. It's just people don't. I often say this. People hands are so tight, and it's me, and they're storing up. You can't take. I never seen a hearse behind the. I never seen a U-Haul truck behind a hearse.
That's true. You ain't taking it with you.
You can't take anything with you. And just for your tenacity and your ability to help people, man, that has inspired me as a business owner, you know, to do what I do even more to help people and to educate and to, there's no limitations. The only limitations we have is the ones we put on ourselves.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. I would agree. And I think when you really take a real hard look at yourself, you know, and you remove those limitations, you really start to soar. You know, I have a lot of clients that I work with, and sometimes when we're having those conversations, we talk about, you know, their personal finances, their credit, and challenges that they have. And there's some people that just not going to do what they need to do. And unfortunately, those are the people that you want to help, but they may not be able to be helped in their current situation. But the ones that do want to, that get it, they come back, they continually ask questions, and they get to that next level. And yes, it may not take them, it may not happen overnight for them, you know, but at some point they'll get there. If you look back at some of the celebrities that have become very famous, like Beyonce, when she first started, she didn't just jump out and overnight she became Beyonce with a B behind her bank account. It took her years and years, and she had to go through struggles. I think maybe 10, 15 years before you even probably really knew her name, you know, but people, like you said earlier, they don't remember the hard times. They only want to see the good times. And I continually remind people, you don't just get there overnight. You don't. You work hard for it.
Well, the objective, as you mature and get wiser, the objective, if it doesn't change, it eventually is going to change. And you realize it's not even about the money. It's the journey. Money is the byproduct of anybody's success. It's just a byproduct.
You know, that's so true. And money is, when we realize and we start treating money like it's supposed to be treated, then that's when our mindset even changes a lot bigger, right? So, you know, when I first thought of money, before, like I said, making that transition into real estate, I used to think, okay, I got to make this whole bunch of money. But I remember making a whole bunch of money and having less. And then when I made less, I had more.
Yep.
I couldn't understand the rationale about it, but the difference is it goes back to that mindset. Mm-hmm. When I made more, I spent differently. Mm-hmm. When I made less, I spent differently. Mm-hmm. And then once I started to understand the value of money and how money is actually should be used, mm-hmm. that's when shit changed. I mean, so I'll give you another good example. We've been buying investment property for some time. We had purchased a couple. When we first got into the investment piece. Yes. Can I talk about this? Mm-hmm. Okay. When we first got into the investment piece, y'all gotta excuse my stomach. We made a lot of mistakes, and my husband was like, "Listen, I don't know about you, but I don't have money to waste," because we didn't have anybody again to teach us and kind of figure it out. And a few years ago, we had all this equity in our home, and I was like, "Bae, we should do something." He was like, "Well, what you want to do?" And I said, "Well, let's buy property." He was like, "And do what with it?" I said, "Let's make money off of it." He was like, "So how would we do that?" Because for so long, I had been told by people mm-hmm. that you got to have good credit, you got to have great income, and you got to have experience before you can become a real estate investor. So we had a couple of properties under our belt that we were renting, but that was about it. So I know personally, actually I saw the guy last night. I told him, I said, "I made you a shitload of money." Oh, my bad.
No, he's fine.
Oh, I told him,
keep it authentic.
I told him, "I made you a boatload of money." Dude, when I called dude, he literally answered his phone because he knew I was calling him with a great deal. I was giving him all the money that should have been in my pocket, right? Mm-hmm. So when I was talking to my husband, I said to him, "Well, let's get back into the investment arena." And he said, "Well, what do you want to do?" I said, "Well, let's get an equity line. Let's take out some money in our equity line," because we didn't have any money. We didn't have any cash money. So we went and took out an equity line. True story. This is a true story. Went and took out an equity line in that $70,000 house that I was telling you about mm-hmm. that keeps paying me back because all the rental properties that we purchased from that home. So, and it was almost paid off, right? That $70,000 home that's made, that's worth $7. I'm going to keep saying it because I want people to understand.
Yeah, 10 times.
Yeah, you can be able to do that. So we took out this equity line and I was like, well, I don't know anything about the city of Ocala, but I know I got some property up there. I had never even been, I didn't even know where Ocala was, right?
That was my stomping ground. That's Maran County. Keep going.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I went there because a dude had called me and said he wanted me to sell a house for him. I went up there and I'm like, you know what? I like this area. There's still some areas that's blighted. You can buy I know we couldn't afford to buy anything in Pinellas because Pinellas saturated. So we went up to Maran County and I told my husband at that time that I had found this one particular house that we wanted to buy. And he was like, "You don't even know anybody up there. You just went up there like one time and now you want to invest in that area?" I was like, "Yeah, I don't." So he said, "Well, if you do it, you do it on your own." So I was like, "Okay." Mm-hmm. I said, "You sure?" He was like, "Yeah, you just do it on your own." So, okay, now I don't want to be wanting to spend the money after the fact, we done made a good deal. So I went up to Maran County and I started going to the Home Depot. I didn't know anybody up there. I started going to the Home Depot and I started meeting people. Just, "Excuse me, sir, do you know do you know any electricians? Do you know any plumbers?" Yeah.
People in their trade.
Yeah. And so eventually I started to meet people. Of course, we met some bad apples. There's mm-hmm. always going to be bad apples. You got to weed them out. But anyways, so we used this equity line. I'm going to tell you exactly how we did this. No money. Not $1 came out of my pocket. We used our equity line. We purchased this property that was in distress. We renovated this property with our equity line. I turned around and took a mortgage out on that property, got all of my money back from that equity line, all of my money, every single penny plus some. Mm-hmm. Put a 30-year mortgage on it and I have somebody renting that property right now. So I actually purchased the property from that $70,000 house. That's going to be making me and my grandkids money.
Yeah. So that's going to segue into this. We heard the story, what she just said. Don't try to write this down and be like, oh, I'm going to go do what she just did. That's years of experience and knowledge of knowing what you're doing. Yeah. I'm not saying that you can't do it, but you can't do it based on her short little story that she has told.
Actually, they can, and that's what we were just talking about. The reason that I didn't do it, being in the industry for as long as I had been in the industry, was because nobody told me how to do it.
Yes.
So what I did was I put together a little like program, and I charge like $399, and I give them everything from start to finish. Because the reason that I charge, I would give it to you for free, but then you waste my time.
Well, people don't value what's free.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I give you every step of how you do it, what you need to do, who you go to. And it's not difficult. I promise you. The biggest thing is, as long as you got equity and credit, those two things, if you got equity and, three things, equity, credit, and you know an area that you want to invest in. Now, we don't buy houses over $150,000. And you probably be like, okay, so why would you do that? Well, we buy houses that can be rented because my strategy is I'm building generational wealth for my grandkids. My kids are good. I want my grandkids to have generational wealth. By the time they're older, I only have one, but by the time he's old enough, in 30 years, that house will be paid off. In 20 years, that house will be paid off. I'll sell that property. I'll sell those properties, and then we'll be able to buy something for him to manage, because my goal is to teach him real estate. Any successful multimillionaire person have real estate in their portfolio. Yes. If you're not investing in real estate, there's probably not a good chance that you can sustain your wealth.
Thank you very much for being on the show. I appreciate your wealth of knowledge. I'm quite sure our audience is going to appreciate your wealth of knowledge, and hopefully it impacts them directly and indirectly.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This is 7,000 Volts, Living an Electrified Life. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be on the lookout for my book, 7,000 Volts, Living an Electrified Life. You can find us for more information on ljtucker.com and all the other social media platforms. Thank you. Have a great week.